Hello and welcome to Frank's School. Okay, it's quiz time. What I would do when I would give a quiz, typically on a Friday in some kind of an ideal week, Friday would be for quizzing. And then after the quiz was over, I'd show a clip from some movie that had to do with the course, ideally in a kind of the perfect world that was before the state got involved in standards and all that. But anyway, I would first hand out paper and I'd say, okay, put your name on the left, there goes your name, and then today's date on the right, same line. I always made them date things, and I'm glad I did, and well, you basically always should. And then I would ask questions about what I had been teaching, because in a typical week it wasn't just class vocabulary. I began the class with class vocabulary, and it might have taken 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. But then I would go on to what I called the main event. Now that divided a class period that was, say, 42 minutes long into 3 parts, or 2 parts typically, or 3 usually, because I so often would then have a clip. If I could find anything in the world of documentaries or movies that related to what I was teaching, I would try to show them 5 minutes of it or something like that. And I have, since I was teaching the humanities, in a sense the sky was the limit. So anyway, I would ask questions about the material that I had taught, and I would let them use their notes for that. I came to the point where I basically did not believe in involuntary homework. If they got so interested in something that I taught, well then fine, they could go study it. So I let them use their notes, but of course they had to have good notes and be able to find their way around. I would also reward students who would take my quiz with no notes, and I basically would trust them. I would watch, and I would trust them. And some kids always wanted to do that, but others I would, and I'd let them use their notes at any point. If they got in trouble, they could get their notes. So I'd say 1, 2, and I'd ask the questions aloud. I would not hand it out written. That way I didn't spend my evenings typing it up and printing paper. I just asked them the question. I'd jot it down. And then when I get to the end, I'd go back. Does anyone need number 1 repeated? 2, 3, 4? And if they needed it, I'd repeat any one of them once, but not more. Then I would say, okay, put a wavy line there. And now here are the words that I want you to use, and you write them down across the page like that, with commas in between. So crucifix, they would give them time to write it. Plums, give them time. Ruptured, tawdry, parapet. Bolster, I wouldn't go this fast, and I wouldn't go this fast, but sallow, of course you can always, if you're actually trying to do this, you can always hit pause. Sleet, curio, and actually, leave curio out, forget that, sleep. Of the 9 words, I would usually leave 1 out, or maybe even 2, so now they had 8 words. They'd studied 9. In class we talked about 12, but I'd squeeze it down, partly for myself. I didn't want to spend any more time than I had to just correcting papers instead of being with the students. All right, I'd repeat the list. I'd say them over again. And I'd say, now put a semicolon there. And here's the deal. You can use 8 sentences if you want. You've got to write sentences and show me that you know what they mean, the words mean. And you need to underline the word in the sentence so I know where it is immediately. You can use 8 sentences, but if you can do that whole job and do it in, say, 4 sentences only, well then 4 equals +1. I'll give you an extra point for that. Kids would do anything for an extra point. But that forced them to start to write these better, more interesting sentences, put the words together. And I'd usually have some students say, what if I put all 8 in one sentence? I'd say, well, you'll still only get 1 point. Because then what happened was I would just get terrible sentences, run-on sentences, terrible sentences. But 4 or less. Sometimes I'd squeeze it. I'd say, okay, 3 or less. Then I'll give you an extra point. And then I'd probably also say, and if you include a simile in your sentence, and in the margin put an SI beside the line that has the simile, I'll give you a simile, that equals +1. And if you have an allusion in one of your sentences, I'll give you an extra point. Well, the kids, they would, but you have to put this, ALLU, in the margin beside the line that has it. All right, and then it would be, and as you use your words, strike them out. You can use them in any order that you want. You can mix them up. You can change the way they end, as long as it's still a standard English word, and it comes from the same root. Then I'd be quiet, and for about, I used to love this time, for about 10 minutes I'd walk around the room and look, and the kids would be writing these wonderful sentences. I'm going to show you some in the coming days. So let's see, somebody writes, oh, and if I just said allusion, a lot of times they'd go blank. Allude to what? So I'd say, well, to a movie, or a song, or a famous athlete. But sometimes, just to make it easier, I'd make it real specific. You must allude to, and I would think of what I had been teaching about. And the most recent thing I'd been teaching about really had been punctuation. So what do you allude to? I could have said Chanticleer. Include an allusion to Chanticleer, or Victor Borg. All right, so the kids start to write this sentence and come up with something like, Chanticleer had to bolster his ego because he looked as tawdry and sallow as a sick person. Something like that. So he had to bolster his ego because he looked as tawdry in his clothes, in his new feathers, as a sick person. Or something like that. Wait, tawdry and sallow as a sick person. Well, as a sick person, got the simile, alluded to Chanticleer, that was easy. Got 3 words in one sentence. And the sentences did not have to have anything to do with each other. Sometimes kids would want to start a story and write it as a little story. They couldn't hold themselves back. That was okay. And then when they were done, they would bring their papers up to me. I would look them over real quickly mostly to make sure they had underlined their words, because that way it was so much simpler, and struck them out up here to make sure they hadn't forgotten. Or if they remembered, they had to claim their simile or their allusion. Well, that's the way the exercise went. And in the days that are coming, we're going to turn to other matters. But I think I'm going to show you some of the sentences that were generated, because I saved some of the very best, and I'll share them with you. Well, I think that's it for today, and basically for class vocabulary. See you next time, probably tomorrow.